Good morning. Good morning. It is so good to be with you. We are here on our journey from Resurrection Sunday to Pentecost. Good morning, Penny. My Yada P. So glad to have you in the room. And I just want to tell you guys that today, take a minute to share. We're talking about the parable of the barren fig tree. Take a second, just share. And I will honestly tell you, as I share as well, today the Lord just kind of got me because I was, had been asking him, what parable are we going to talk about in the morning, Lord? What parable are you going to um, give to your people again? And he says the parable of the fig tree. And I was like, okay, let me just refresh myself, look and see what's going on there. And I'm like, oh Jesus, this is a hard one because I feel like you're stepping all over my toes, and you're just kind of annihilating all of the things that I think I know. And he says, good, because that's what it's meant to do. It is meant to touch you just as much as it touches anyone else. And so if you're not familiar with, or you've forgotten the parable of the fig tree, the barren fig tree, it is found in Luke 13, verse 6 through 9. At the beginning of Luke 13, there were some people that approached Jesus and they asked him a question, about the Galileans that had been slaughtered by Pilate. And Pilate had taken their blood and mingled it with other sacrifices, sacrifices that they were making to pagan gods. And they asked Jesus the question, were these Galileans worse sinners than all other Galileans because of the way they suffered? And, Jesus is listening to this. They're asking, are these Galileans just like these dreadful sinners? And Jesus is listening and he wants to know, do you think that they were worse than any other Galilean? Galileans were not considered to be very smart or anything like that. But he says, do you think they were more sinful than any other Galilean? And then he went on to ask about the 18 who died in the Tower of Siloam. And the tower just fell on them and 18 people were killed. And they lived in Jerusalem. They were not Galileans. He says, do you think they were as guilty, of sin as anyone else, or more guilty? And Jesus told them no. And he goes into this parable of the fig tree. I love how Jesus does that. He's looking, he's saying, that there's something going on here that we need to take a little bit closer examination of. He went on to say, then he told this parable. A man had a fig tree growing in his vineyard, and he went to look for fruit on it, but did not find any. So he said to the man who took care of the vineyard, for 3 years now, I've been coming to look for fruit on this fig tree and haven't found any. Cut it down. Why should it use up the soil? I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button there. Here we go. Sir, the man replied, leave it alone for 1 more year and I'll dig around it and fertilize it. If it bears fruit next year, fine. If not, then cut it down. So Jesus goes from telling them, do you think that these people were worse than any other sinner and they fell on tragedy? And he goes into this parable and he begins to tell them, we look at this parable and we see God being the owner of the vine, the vineyard that the fig tree is in. And we see Jesus, the man, Jesus Christ, being the dresser of the vineyard, and he's going around caring for these trees. And then we see the fig tree as being Israel, or even modern day Israel, which would be us. We've been grafted in, we've been adopted. So we are a part of this right now. And what he's saying is, we need to begin to bear fruit. And if we're not, then we will be cut down. And you're like, wait a minute, what does that have to do with this? Or are we going to be cut down because of? What he's saying is, mind your business. Stop worrying about why these other people perished and start concentrating on you. The fact that Jesus is digging around you, the fact that he is fertilizing you, the fact that he is trying to get you to a productive state, so that when or if tragedy falls, when and if death comes, you are ready to meet your maker, because you have been productive. You have had fruit on your tree that others could consume. You've had fruit on your tree that makes you worth being in that soil. Israel's soil is not very productive. And so when they could find a place to plant a fig tree and it become productive and it become fruitful, they would do it. So you would find fig trees planted in very odd places because of the fact that they were looking for good soil. You've been planted in good soil. And Jesus is saying, get productive. Begin to allow the word of God to dig around you. Allow the word of God to cultivate you and to move you into a productive state. He says, stop worrying about things that really don't concern you, because you're not dividing the word correctly when you do that. He says, you're looking at these Galileans and you're looking at the people that he mentioned from Siloam, and you're wondering about their salvation, when you need to be getting yourself productive so that people who don't know him can come and take fruit from your tree and begin to become productive as well, so that no matter what happens to them, whether it's a tragic death or some dictator who is hateful and mean and disgusting takes their life, you're ready to meet him. So I'm like, okay, Jesus, let me stop comparing or worrying about the state of someone else and begin to look at the productiveness of my own tree, the one that you have even said, Father, let me work with Valerie. Let me dig around her tree. Let me fertilize her so she can become productive. Jesus is working with us every day. His mercies are new every morning. And he says, no matter what happens to you, become productive so that you are ready to meet him. Stop worrying about and comparing yourself and saying, well, see, I'm not a sinner like them. We just talked about that parable of the Pharisee praying and the publican or the tax collector praying together. And Jesus looked and he says, who is justified here? Not the one that's beating his chest saying, me, I'm better than, but the one who's beating his chest saying, I am so unworthy. Lord, I am so unworthy of any of your grace or forgiveness. Yet he's the one who left justified. Come on, y'all. Let's stop comparing our sin to someone else's sin. And let's stop looking at the tragedies that are happening in our world today, saying, wow, they must have been some kind of sinner, and start saying, who am I, Lord? Dig around my tree. Thank you for petitioning the Father to give me some more time. Thank you. Come on, y'all. Let's become productive. so that when those tragedies come, we can say, you know what? I have fruit on my tree and I've been offering fruit to others. I've been giving them opportunity to hear the word of God. I've been making sure that I have what I need so that I can give to someone else. So that's my thing today. My meditation is, Lord, help me to become productive in the kingdom so that others have an opportunity to hear from you, that others have an opportunity to see you in action, because the only way he works is through his people today. We are his hands and his feet. How many times have you said it? Do you believe it? Do you believe that you are his hands and his feet? Get productive. He's petitioned, he's praying on our behalf that we become everything that he purposed us to be. So, Lord, let me become a productive tree that's planted in good soil, that has fruit bearing, that fruit can be the source of guidance and hope for someone else, so that if tragedy does befall, they're ready to meet you. I love you guys. Meditate on that today. Blessings.